There's been talk about these enhanced elite England player contracts for a while now. Lots of talk, no substance, but here we have it. 17 names that Steve Borthwick has announced that will get an extra chunk of cash, and in exchange, Steve Borthwick and his coaching team will get more control, more access over workload, over training, over rehab. And hopefully, Steve Borthwick's intention is to try and mean that elevates the performance of the England national team. The actual selection itself, the 17 names that have been picked, throws up some very interesting talking points, which is what I want to get into here. Your thoughts in the comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up and hit subscribe as well. I'm Tim and this is Egg Chasers. And I found the one part of Greece, evidently, that has decent Wi-Fi. Coffee's not bad here as well. So yeah, a chance for me to sit and chew the cud over this one. So what are these EPS contracts? Well, there's a few elements to this. Steve Borthwick, if you just take him at what he said, this is a way for him to get more out of his players when it really matters. And so his rehab team, his coaches, I don't know whether it extends to being able to dictate to clubs when players play and what position they play or anything like that, but it gives him more access and he's thinking that will improve things. I also think there's another element going on here, which is that the Premiership is not in a good state financially. And I actually think part of this, to put it cynically, is the RFU chucking some money at their key players to stop them from going away to France. Basically, subsidising the Premiership clubs so that their England players don't go abroad in the way that Jack Willis did. So I think there's a few elements to this. And if you just say what the press releases say and say what people say in interviews, it's all about just making the England players better when it comes to match time. I think part of it is the fragile financial state that English rugby is in. And this money has been diverted from elsewhere, like take money away from championship clubs or away from grassroots and give it to some of the England internationals so that they don't go abroad. On the flip side, from the England players' point of view, one of the things that's frustrated the players for a while, and even like Rob Baxter has been saying this for a while, he's been calling for this, give players some certainty. So if a player gets injured and doesn't play for England, they don't get a match fee. Whereas now, these core players know that whether they play or they don't, they've got an amount of money that they can rely on coming in, and it's £150,000 for each of these players. Steve Borthwick has named 17 of them. He can name up to 25. So there may be more announcements to come in the weeks or months ahead of other players that get brought into this. And that's one interesting point. Who else would you hand an EPS contract to? Because there are 8 more out there. I'll go through some of the contenders about who I think those people could be, might be, should be. But what do we read into the names that are there on that list? I mean, the first thing that jumps off the page for me, 3 fly halves and 1 prop. That speaks volumes about England. Fly half has never been a problem position for England. When we had Owen Farrell, it was, I would argue, even better. And so I never, ever understood, and I didn't really give a lot of time for people that were moaning about Owen Farrell starting and it should have been Marcus Smith, which seemed to take up most of the arguments online and in newspaper articles. Fly half is not a problem position. Whether it was Owen Farrell, George Ford or Marcus Smith, didn't matter. We had a really, really, really good operator. And it's the same now with Marcus Smith, Finn Smith and George Ford. 3 outstanding players that many other countries would absolutely love to have one of them. And England have got 3 at the moment. So more than happy. And so fly half's never been a problem for England. Prop has been a problem for quite some time. And 1 prop named in the squad, that prop being Ellis Genge. And he's an outstanding player. Scrummaging not his strength. So the 1 prop England do pick is not known first and foremost for his scrummaging ability, which speaks volumes when you think of the World Cup semi-final and that scrum in the 73rd minute of the match that led to South Africa winning the semi-final. When you think of the World Cup final in Japan, when the scrum was the reason why, well, one of the reasons why South Africa demolished us in that final. It's a big concern for England. It's been a worry for a while. I know that the coaches are aware of it, are working on it. There are good young players coming through, Opoku Fajur and Fasogbon, being a couple, Finn Baxter most recently. But it's still not an area of strength and something that England need to sort out. And when you look at these 17 players, you get an indication potentially about what Steve Borthwick regards as his first choice team, which would be, if you just put these players into a team, it would be Ellis Genge in the 1 jersey, Jamie George wearing 2, no one at tight head prop, big problem position, George Martin and Maro Itoje, with a back row of Ollie Chesham, Tom Curry, Ben Earl. Ollie Chesham, by the way, a perfect example of why this contract helps the players and why it's good for them, is Ollie Chesham's just got an injury that will see him out till probably the new year now, which is a real shame. But he will get this money regardless. Whereas that injury for playing for Leicester would have meant that he just suddenly lost a big chunk of cash in match fees, and it's not a small amount of money that England players get for match fees. So anyway, that's the pack. Back line, Alex Mitchell, then take your pick of fly halves, say Marcus Smith, Ollie Lawrence, Henry Slade at centre, Emmanuel Faye-Waboso, Tommy Freeman on the wing, George Furbank at fullback, leaving 3 players left over, or 2 players left over, sorry. The replacement hooker, no, 3 players left over, yeah. 3 players left over, the replacement hooker and 2 spare fly halves, but again, no tight head prop. Kyle Sinclair was supposed to be that guy, wasn't he? And it didn't progress in the way that England hoped, so we'll wait for the next cab off the rank, but we need to sort that one out. There are more contracts to dish out. Who are those players going to be, if anyone? Well, some of the players that haven't been given contracts is quite interesting. Sam Underhill is probably the most noticeable one, because you think at the moment, with the way that Steve Borthwick's been picking the team and the injuries to Tom Curry, that Sam Underhill has been starting more than Tom Curry. And in the match against New Zealand next week, I would have guessed that Tom Curry might be on the bench and Sam Underhill would be starting. But Sam Underhill not being picked on this list of EPS contracts, does that mean, and this is where it gets interesting, isn't it? Will these contracts play into selection? Firstly, you can imagine Sam Underhill will feel pretty hard done by. And does he take that personally, and how does he react to that? He will still get his match fee, whatever that is, if he plays next week. But if Sam Underhill gets injured, which he has done quite a bit over the years, then that could mean the England money tap gets turned off, which might be a reason why Sam Underhill might assess the situation and say, I might go and take some cash in France, like Jack Willis has done, because nothing's guaranteed. And one injury, and that's it. You lose a massive chunk of money. I still think Sam Underhill's young enough that he would want to play at the next Rugby World Cup, so he might not do that. And Steve Borthwick could also announce Sam Underhill as one of the players that are getting another EPS contract. But whether it plays into selection, that's a really, really interesting point. Also, England have got good young players coming through in that position, and I wonder if that's the reason why Underhill hasn't got it. You've got Henry Pollock, you've got Guy Pepper, who in the next couple of years could start to come through. A young guy that has already come through, who hasn't been given a contract, is Chandler Cunningham South. I would think he would be prime and ripe for maybe one of these contracts in the months ahead. And one other player that hasn't been picked is Freddie Stewart, who, when he burst on the scene, and some of his early performances, I can remember people saying, and I understand, legitimately thinking, he was going to be England's fullback for the next decade. It has not panned out that way. He's still very much involved in the squad, will still get caps, but would he be tempted by a big money offer from France if one came? Because he's not got one of these contracts. It's going to be really interesting to see how this one plays out. Are there any other players I've missed that maybe could have got contracts and haven't? I can't think of any at the moment other than those that I've mentioned. But I guess having some up his sleeve can be something that Steve Borthwick can use as a bit of a carrot. It's like, yeah, go out and earn yourself one of the EPS contracts. There's some there if you perform well enough for your club and then for your country. Interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Anyone else I've missed? Any players you disagree with being on that list? Who do you think is going to be the tight head prop that comes through and earns one? Lots to talk about. I'll see you on the next video.